Fáiltear Nash Grí Shrahadó de Comhrá Le Tomás, Igor Le EIRGRID. Bemesi Le Dine Kailul on Common Lou Clasgael Augusta Suligum Gomuniship Tanavas.
I remember saying to him, "This is some trip, Sean Murray. This is unbelievable." He says, "It's not a trip, Muggsy. It's a tour." And I was like, "No, but you know what I mean." He says, "No, I don't."
So proud there again, D&G. Who're there again, D&G. Dolce and Cabana. Yeah, to LNG anyway. Larry and Galvin anyway. That's the brand name anyway.
Comhrá Le Tomás is brought to you by EIRGRID, official timing sponsors of the GAA All-Ireland Hurling and Football Championships, and key drivers in delivering a cleaner energy future through managing Ireland's electricity grid.
Powering forward is all about timing. Whether it's managing the clock during the championship or managing the electricity grid across the country, EIRGRID knows that every second matters. But most importantly, we know what it takes to keep powering forward.
Hello all, you're all very welcome to another episode of Comhrá Le Tomás. We're back for an All-Ireland special in association with EIRGRID, who, by the way, are giving away 2 tickets to the All-Ireland football final. So details on EIRGRID, all their social media platforms. So if you want in with a chance of winning two tickets to the All-Ireland football final, check out EIRGRID's social media platforms. I'm delighted to be joined by Joe Brolly and Lee Keegan for this episode. I presume you two have come across each other and know each other before today. We all three of us, Lee reminded me, worked, what year was it, Lee, with RT?
2018 quarterfinal or semi-final, sorry.
Neither of the two of us got anything in that day with Joe.
I made Lee the player of the year.
Not in 18, Joe, though. Not in 18, I can tell you that much.
That's true. I was it was when I pointed out very trenchantly on RT that you had outscored Diarmuid Connolly. I think twice. So it's not a bad point.
Yeah, he had gone me though. He had gone me enough times in the final, so it was okay.
I know Lee's proper now.
The reason we're here, lads, is obviously to discuss the final, right? And I'll ask you one question first of all. Like, I've cancelled the holiday. We were supposed to go to the Amalfi Coast in Italy, and when Kerry won the semi-final, I got a bit excited, and I said, "Sure, I've Slay Head 3 miles back the road. It's better than any Amalfi Coast." And I wanted to stay around for the final. Does this final excite you? Does it excite you, Kerry, Galway? I know, obviously, I've skin in the game, but does it excite you, a Kerry Galway final, the way things are at the moment?
I would say that the prospect of Galway winning is terrifying for Lee and for all right-thinking Mayo people. I never saw so many Mayo ones supporting Derry before the semi-final.
I could be going to the Amalfi Coast, Tomas.
I was going to ask you, there is, like, okay, we'll talk about Derry in a second, but if Cork were get to an All-Ireland final, is there something, there was something in me, like, it's not that you don't want them doing well, but you don't want them doing well when you know possibly that you're a better team than them, or that you'd love to have got further than them. Do you have that for Galway? Like, do you mind Galway being in a final? Would you like, obviously, in terms of there has to be a part of you that say, fuck that.
Yeah, like if you've been totally honest, there are obviously our bitter rivals in terms of in Connacht Championship, and just generally when we play them, there always a bit of a needle and a spike to the game, because obviously we're neighbouring counties. So I mean, that aspect of it straight away, you have that kind of, I'm not going to say hatred, because I can't hate teams. I don't see the need to hate, but like, you'll be very pumped up for them games. And probably this year has been probably difficult because we had them at home in the Connacht Championship first, and then we didn't play particularly well, but could have won the game. But then to see them obviously progress through the Championship, probably not actually watching them too much, and then doing the game on Saturday and see them get to the All-Ireland final. Yeah, listen, there's a kind of a burn inside you knowing that could have been ye potentially. Now, I don't think it would happen for this year anyway, the way we're playing and stuff, but like, seeing your neighbouring county, obviously it is tough, but at the same time, listen, I'm not going to sit here and say I hate them. I don't, because I don't think that's the wrong word to use. So.
And that was Lee Keegan, member of the Dáil.
No. There's no doll here. There's no politician in this house, I can tell you. But like if I sat here and told you I was supporting
Certainly
Galway,
not the
like
Bumblebee.
that's a lie. That's a lie because listen, they are our rivals of the day. And as you said, like Joe, if you've seen Cork, you're like, for fuck's sake, like, and you've seen enough time. So for me, it's a new challenge for a lot of our lads seeing Galway this far. So
Yeah.
Joe, in 93 you won, but 92, 94, like Ulster was booming at the time. Did you mind seeing other Ulster teams
No,
win?
we were different because the 6 counties were very tight, very enmeshed, very much on the same journey together, and would be a very, very strong sense of solidarity, even yet with those teams, DJ Kane and Ross and Lee James and all those boys, and we would still have Tony Boyle, all that. We'd be very close, like, and regular contact and all of that. And any of the 6 counties teams that are going, you'd still see that terrific support from them.
I think as well, Joe, what's different is the championship setup as well. I think because you were straight knock it then, you probably don't have you'd probably more time to get over as such, where we're still in competition. You're seeing Galway progress through winning provincial, but we're still in the backdoor section where it was just very much a straight knock it then. So
like when we won the All Ireland, there was a huge public meeting for us in the Moy and Tyrone on the way back. For example, they had a stage for us to get up onto, and there was a huge crowd there, and a rapturous welcome for the group. And precisely the same whenever Down won the All Ireland. We would have gone there to see the celebrations and all of that. And of course, whenever Down won it, then we realised, look, we can do this, because they'd beaten us in a replay in 1991 to get past us. Ross Carr famously saved them with the draw the first end. Classic Down, He'd been down on the ground, Ross, and the ball was there, and myself and Enda Gormley were standing. He was a full 55 metres out, and he was a brilliant kicker of the ball. And he said, out of the road, out of the road there, lads, to pop this over the bar. And I can remember Enda Gormley burst out laughing, going, "You stupid bastard," he said to him. And I mean, he put it over the bar and then some. And it was very important, because if we had beaten Down, we'd never have won the All Ireland that year. As it was, they went on and won the All Ireland. Then we won the National League the following year. And these stepping stones were very important for us. But we'd be very cohesive in the 6 counties compared to, down here. I'm surprised, Tomás, to hear you said with all your great successes.
But I can't agree. I can't agree with Joe. I can't agree with one thing, though. I don't think we'd be putting up a banner now and celebrating the goal with Kerry win now, to be honest. So there's none of that up.
I know. I'd have fierce respect for all teams, obviously. And I'd agree with Lee. I wouldn't say I'd hate Cork. But I wouldn't sit down here and say that I'd like to see Cork winning All Ireland either. Because we were brought up to kind of, I suppose, the difference in Munster, Joe, is that I know the 6 county and there's something different to that, right? But we were brought up and our greatest rivals were Cork, and they were on the border. There was a kind of call it what you like. But at the same time, it would be difficult, even with all the success we had, and we had a pile of success, and we beat them fairly often as well. There was still something, Jesus Christ, they're after fucking winning that. What will stop them talking now, kind of a thing.
Yeah, but I mean, you battered them all the time. I mean, during your time. And
you did a lot of the time.
It's very difficult to see why you would deny them the pleasure of an All Ireland. That's all.
We can't say the same with Galway.
See why the Mayo wants them, because they say, like, "Oh Jesus, we were there so many times, we had so many opportunities, and these fuckers are going to come now."
And there is
this year.
But no, but the thing is, Galway have come in for a lot. Like, that team have exceptional talent, and I think it was trying to get the right game plan for them, because I think we always talk about flair and playing sexy football, and that's what Galway were associated, and we always target that for years with Galway, because we've seen that bit of softness. Where now, since Kevin Welsh was there, he brought that bit of steeliness. But poor Joyce has got a game plan, and he's getting the best out of certain guys. On top of his own guys, like, so Shane Walsh, Comer, Conor are still their main guys. But as I said last day, I think he's getting more out of Killian McDade, Sean Kelly. These lads who probably weren't hitting peak form before, but they're getting better, because poor.
I think they've limped along. I mean, they got it was a terrible goal you guys gave away in McHale Park. I mean, look, it was Big Aiden's ball, like, all day long. It's a terrible goal to give away. I mean, they were, I think, fortunate to get Derry. I mean, Derry are overawed, and Derry lacked quality. I mean, I don't think one of the Derry forwards would get into either the Kerry or Dublin team, for example. Their forward, we were very formulaic, very systematic. The team was clearly overawed in Croke Park, and you can just see that we're limited. We're a limited team, and you can see that the following day when you saw Kerry in Dublin. That was a completely different level of quality, and it was a proper huge championship match. So I think it's a huge challenge for Galway.
Is it too easy to say, Joe, that Derry have to get ahead of teams in games?
Well, we should have been about 7-0 up. Instead, the team started to go for goals whenever we were. See, the Derry thing is a bit like Jim McGuinness. It's sort of a confidence trick. The opposing team look at it and they go, "Oh Jesus, everybody's back. There doesn't seem to be any space." And then once you start systematically going ahead, as we did against Tyrone, 4-0, 5-0, 6-0, very careful in possession, then they start to get panicky. We better do something. Then they're dashing themselves against the Roxy or defence without thinking their way through it. And that happened in every single game except Donegal, who set up the same as us. Donegal set up the same way. And, we just broke them down eventually because Donegal are not, they're not as motivated as they were. And I think that's the end of a team. It's the end of Michael Murphy, for example. We see that he's trotting about in the half-back line and passing the ball left and right. Sort of things that he would never have done in the past. So then we get Clare, exactly the same thing. They're out of the game after a few minutes. And then against Galway, we go 3-0 up. We should have gone 7-0 up. But once we didn't, and then once Galway realised there's a kick pass on to Damien Comer every time because the Derry sweeper's playing out at just beside the number 6. All that space is in there. And on the 21st minute, they kicked the first kick pass in. Comer put it over the bar. You could see Comer going off at half time. He was going, give me the ball. And then the 2 goals in the second half. And obviously we've got the wandering goalkeeper,
We were watching that all game, and that was coming from minute 1. I can tell you now, lads. And that was just crazy, like Joe. And like it was set up for Galway to actually do that. But I think Derry's biggest regret will be not capitalising on the first 20 minutes, though. Honest, like they had to run a Galway because Galway looked very leggy and looked very nervous in the first 20 minutes, and that was the time to kill them. And as you said, they went for a couple of goal chances, had a couple of bad shots, which we haven't seen in Championship, and then you could just see them getting deflated. And they said, it's funny, we were watching Rogers had kicked the first 2 points of Comer. I said, this book is away. But once Comer got that first ball in, his demeanour just completely changed for the game.
Correct. See,
you think Galway are gone a little bit more defensive? I know there was Kevin Welch came in and people were giving out that it was too defensive altogether and they had no attacking game or no attacking running game or no outlet up front, Lee. But then Joyce came in, and if you go man-on-man in the modern game, you probably will get beaten. I don't think Galway are going to go man-on-man against Kerry.
No.
Are they kind of after finding a balance in it?
Well, like if you could nearly played one half of football for most of that first half last night because you had everybody nearly in one half. So Galway are gone ultra defensive, but they're also the difference between Derry and Galway is Galway have footballers who can play off the cuff, can play a bit more flair. So, but then in the second half, I think Joe said, like, once they kept Comer up as a target man, like Derry just kept getting sucked forward, and it was just one kick pass. If they'd done that for the full second half, they could have won the game by 10 or 15 points because it was that easy to them then because they had Derry picked. They knew exactly what Derry's game plan was, turn them over time after time after time, and it was just a kick pass forward. So I do agree. I do think Galway are going to set up defensively. I don't think we're going to get a classic final by any means, to be honest. I think it's going to be tight, nervy. And if you look at the Kerry-Dublin game, I still think it was quite nervy at times as well, the way they set up. There was a lot of lateral hand passing back and forth. It was slow at times, albeit it was a total different intensity and feel to the game. I do think Galway will set up defensively because they know the likes of Clifford, Paddy Clifford, Sean O'Shea, these boys, you give them 5 yard space, it's game over. Because we found out enough times playing them this year that they just turn a sixpence and it's over the bar. And the way Clifford played in that first half was just absolutely, like, he's a joy to watch at times, you know. I mean, Mick Forsyth is a fine defender, but, like, I mean, he was just running the show. So he was.
Lee, I'd ask you straight up, and you were involved in a current inter-county team, and you'd be, in fairness, you've been very solid at the back. How would do you have a say in how you defend? Let's say you're coming up against a Kerry and Clifford is playing. Do you have a say in terms of, now James Horn has gone and all that, so you're not breaking any. How do you even attempt to try to deal with Clifford like?
Well, like, I mean, probably naively ourselves, the first game in Tralee was just a mud fest, and I probably played the conditions, so it was easy to drop men back and so on. But the league final, we went man to man, and sure, if you leave Clifford, I'd say with 5 yards or mind 50 yards, he's going to pick you off every time. I'd say one kick pass was enough to set him up for 1-6, like so. And it wasn't even Borg Horror's fault; it was just we left him hanging. So, like, the whole game plan probably for us was trying to drop our wing forwards back to help out from each side, so that the weak side drops back, fills in that space there. But also, I think O'Shea made a huge difference from we played the league final, which is a non contest. But I thought he did very well against Clifford, although albeit he got the goal, he got 1-1 in the first half, but he negated him pretty well. And we would probably look at that game. We actually had done all right defensively in the first half to set ourselves up, but we've been kind of flat most of the year in terms of going forward, probably, and we just didn't get enough from ourselves then. Even the third quarter, we had chances to go ahead in the game and dropped a couple of short, put a couple of wide, and then Kerry just picked us off for 15 to go. And you can just feel the game getting away from us. So we do have input in terms of how we are going to defend, but it's probably how you get your matchups more as well. So, like, we kind of identified Paddy Clifford as a big one for them. He's their link man for everything, and you see how good he was on Sunday, particularly in that third and fourth quarter when he just ran the show. Like, I mean, when they needed somebody leadership, he was their man just to do it. So I think once we identified him and we kind of negated him to a degree, the boys weren't getting as much ball inside. So yeah, we do have input, but at the end of the day, you're still going to be left 1-1 at some stage, so you have to trust yourself as well.
Yeah, Mayo never have a sweeper, and he's always in the wrong place anyway. Even when he does drop back, and it's too far for him out forward to drop back. You need to have a rotating sweeper in your defence. You can't. I mean, like David Clifford. David Clifford scored 4 goals and 4 points from play against Derry in his last minor final. Half the Derry team was marking him. And you can't leave him. And I thought that Mayo were very, very, very naive. I mean, even his goal that he got against you guys, I mean, everybody just left him once he made his run through. I mean, everyone peeled off, went with their own men, and there's no tightness around the square.
There was no sweeper against the Dubs either, Joe. The Dubs had no designated sweeper because the boys engaged them. They had 6 forwards that engage. So you'd have to then.
They rotate the sweeper. They always rotate the sweeper, and there's always somebody there watching.
But that sweeper is taken because of the wing. You're dropping men back who'll tackle outside, but it'll be a wing. The sweeper will be. You'll get a sweeper from the extra men coming back, like.
See, Galway's thing against us was just very primitive. It was very like the 2014 All-Ireland final between Kerry and Donegal. Kerry thought themselves, right, we saw what happened against Dublin. Everybody saw what Derry did to Tyrone, Monaghan, Clare. We cannot get sucked in and try to go man-to-man because they'll cut us to pieces. That's what they do. And our defenders are really all attackers. I mean, they're just sprinting machines coming out of the defence. And so, very like the All-Ireland final in 2014, Galway went into their shell. They just brought everybody back. And to start with then, it's just see where we go with this. Try not to make any mistakes. Try not to give any fouls away. And Derry's confidence started to drain away once we started to, do rash things. Chrissy McCaig came up, for example, and he kicked a really ridiculous pot shot. And those fine margins.
Rory Gallagher pulled the blow.
What?
Rory Gallagher gave him a fucking when he did that, so.
Rory, it's such an eccentric presence on the sideline. I was behind him for the Ulster final. I've never seen the like of it. I said to him afterwards, I said to him, are you okay? And he said, no, that's me, Cam. I mean, you had to see it.
He had a banger.
It was one of the most extraordinary, eccentric displays, and it's constant, And the boys love him. The boys have responded very well to him. But look, I mean, I'm glad we're not in the final because that sort of stuff stinks in all our final out, and it's no good.
But it stinks, Joe. I think it stinks, and it stunk against Donegal, and I got criticised for this. It stinks when both teams set up defensively. They know what way Derry are going to set up, so they will go the same way. Then it's just over and back, waiting for a chance and an opportunity. You might get 6 or 7 chances in a half. That's when it's terrible. When a team comes out and goes at them, it'll open up that little bit more and you'll have that excitement. And if Derry get ahead, go on.
But the team who goes at them then gets screwed. I mean, Dublin tried it in 2014, the semi-final against Donegal. I wrote that morning, the nightmare is upon them. Because Tim Gavin was saying, we're going to play a normal game. We've got good enough players. We've probably got the best group of players that's ever played the game. And we're going to go for them. And Bernard Brogan said it in an interview a few weeks earlier. I was like, oh, Bernard. And I really did think that Donegal were going to do them over. Because, it's the laws of physics. And there it was. They went out and they dashed themselves off the rocks, and Donegal cut them to pieces gleefully. But you guys then, you did the sensible thing, and it was the worst final I've ever seen. But there it was. They made one mistake. The keeper's short kick out.
Yeah.
He scored the goal.
I'd say they regret that since they still think they should have.
I mean, they regret it, and bastards to this day shouting out Vans to me. What do you think of that, Joe? Fuck off.
There's a great stat. There's a great stat from Durkin in that year. Hey, he'd one kick out missed that year. It was all Ireland final. One turnover kick out.
Durkin had one kick out missed.
Yeah, and it was the Kieran Downey goal.
There you go.
So there you go.
Can I just throw one? Do you remember Scully's missed score down into the canal?
That was the killer.
Are you convinced? And we've had this chat already this week, Joe. Are you convinced? I know you have Clifford and you had Shawnee Shea, who had a very good game last day. Are you convinced with Kerry? Are you sold on Kerry yet?
No, not at all. I think you have serious problems in midfield. David Moran hasn't got the legs, but he's still your best all-round footballer at midfield. You had Jack Barry in there to nullify Fenton. He's not a good all-round footballer. Galway have an excellent midfield. Paul Conroy is a superb Gaelic footballer.
McDade is playing very well.
He can do everything. And he's disciplined now. That shittiness and stuff that he was at, he's knocked that on the head, and he's playing extremely well, and he's playing with honour and as a leader. He's the sort of James McCarthy figure there for them. Galway's problem is that Damien Comer against Derry was just 1-on-1, and that's what Damien can do. You leave him 1-on-1, he'll get the ball, he'll go past you, he's very, very strong, and he'll stick the ball in the net. But Kerry are not going to allow him to do that. Paddy Tally's there with Kerry. The sweeper will play at Damien Comer's feet. He will have no room through that central area. 7 times in the second half between Dublin and Kerry, a Dublin man went into that central area and was stripped of the ball. Absolutely scavenged and stripped of the ball. Nobody comes through that central area. Very like Tyrone and the Naughties when Tally was there. You do not come through the central area. You go down the wings, not through the central area, and certainly not a goal. And so I think Damien Comer will be completely nullified because that's his game. And he's really, although he's very powerful at it, and he destroyed Derry, he's a very unsophisticated forward. And Kerry will not allow him to do it.
Joe,
Shane Walsh.
I don't agree with the matchup though from the semi-final. I never were you at the league game going, okay, Derry? Rogers had Mark Comer in the league as well, and he picked him for 2 goals as well that day. So I think it was a bad matchup from a minute go, to be honest.
Terrible matchup. Because he's not
nervous. Why didn't you have a sweeper right in front of him? And Derry are well used to doing that.
But my thing is, why not push Chris McKay on Comer? He's a right now. He's a right now full back. He's our man marker, and although I think Finnery's had a good year, I think that matchup was nearly just a tad easy for Chrissy. I think matchup against Comer would have negated that to a degree. Now, I don't think Derry would have won the game, but I think it would have limited Comer to a lot less than what he scored on Saturday.
Yeah, well, the point is this, that it wouldn't have mattered who was on him. He was so free, for the 2 balls in. It really wouldn't have mattered because he is very powerful and he picks his shoulder and he can go right or left. He's going to be impossible to stop. Kerry will not allow that to happen. There's just no way that they'll allow that to happen. So the sweeper, Jimmy McGuinness used to preach this when he invented it. He used to say, the sweeper plays at the feet of the dangerous forward. That's his job. And you remember we McHugh, I'm trying to think of his first name, who was in the All-Ireland winning team, 2012. Mark McHugh, of course. And he is absolute sickener. You just play in on the feet of the good forward. So maybe 5 meters, no more than that. It was impossible to give the ball to him. It just simply could not be done.
I was with the American him in the final 12. So I don't think he came across the other once. Yes.
That role you're talking about, Joe, in terms of the sweeper, and in fact, Joe plays a sweeper fairly well, and I don't know if you crossed him, is Powter. Powter sat in front of David Clifford against Cork. Clifford didn't get much space that day against Cork. I know you're talking about a different team in terms of the quality as the game went on, and Kerry were always going to win that game, but the effectiveness, I do agree that Galway are going to put somebody back in front of Clifford.
Walsh is flaky as well, Tomas.
What?
Walsh is flaky. Walsh is not for me. He's not a clever, sophisticated team player. Pádraig O'Hora didn't give him a kick last year in Connacht, and then as a result this year, they were concerned about that. Now, as it turned out, Pádraig didn't play, but they actually picked him at wing back against Mayo to come forward from the half back line. And you saw in the Armagh match, for example, he really was relatively lost once James Morgan really got tucked into him. Now James gets tucked into you like Philly McMahon
Yeah, he's
style.
good,
I don't know
good
if you,
defender. Good defender.
but he's really like it's. I don't know if you read Philly McMahon's piece in the Independent at the weekend about how he would mark Clifford. It was absolutely hilarious. Oh, you're the guy. You're the guy who was a great miner. Sort of start with a sledge, and oh, you're the token captain. All that stuff. And then he said I would have stood on his toes. Stood on his feet, and you need to take somebody like that out of their comfort zone. But Walsh against Armagh had zero influence on the game, and uh, against Derry again, he had zero influence on the game. Connor
Yeah,
McCluskey, who's a flat out sprinter, picked him up
brilliant
and
game.
took him out of the game.
Yeah,
I
he did a good job.
suspect Tom O'Sullivan. I suspect Tom O'Sullivan, your scoring cornerback, will probably pick him up because I think that Walsh is a wanderer, and I know that he can be capable of moments of great brilliance. But that day against Armagh, for example, he gave away two crucial balls that could have changed. I mean, he gave away the goal with a ridiculous sort of, I thought, very self-indulgent crossfield pass off the outside of the boot. It was intercepted. Armagh went up and scored a goal. Like, Kerry are not great, not by the standards of the team that you played on, or the great Kerry teams. But you've got the greatest footballer, I think, who's ever played the game, and I think it's time for him to win All Ireland now. He's going to win a senior All Ireland, and I suspect it'll be this year. I mean, you can't. Somebody like David Clifford can't be held back for that long. I mean, he almost won it for you in his first All Ireland final against Dublin the day that Dublin
Yeah.
clung on for the draw. And as Lee says, he's not really markable. You can do your best. I mean, Tyrone rolled over him last year, and he kicked, I think, 7 or 8 points.
Yeah, but that's the thing, Joe.
That's what
I think that's the thing with like when I first came into GA, like if you told me as a defender like you're going to mark a boy that kicks 4 points on you and you had a good day, I think you're absolutely still mad. I really do. But then when these kids come through like Clifford and John O'Shea, and you're getting praise for conceding only 4 on a guy like that, I'd be thinking, no, like he's that good. Like he is that good. That's just the reality of what we're at like with these guys, like
Imagine sitting in the changing room before the match and says, son, you're picking up Clifford today. Oh, for fuck's sake. Did he not mark him? What the fuck? What do you want me to mark?
Well, like
but really,
yeah.
He scored 6 points off Mick Fitzsimmons, and I was just, Jesus, Mick did really well. And Mick's 6'2", he's a big guy, brilliant athlete, doesn't foul, great at getting a hand in. I thought he did as good a job as anybody could have done on him at the weekend. And yet, he scored 7 points, 5 in the first half. One of the points was hilarious. It was like the Pied Piper, everybody's trying to come to him, and his hands are so strong. He's a perfect Gaelic footballing machine.
The most dangerous forward, you would probably agree with this, is a fella, Comer. Comer's a guy who can take you on, right? Clifford can take you on, right? But Clifford can also pretend to take you on, boom, out, 40 yards from anywhere, left or right, and bang. So he has the two.
There's a difference between both, though. Like Comer's more kind of brute one-way traffic, where Clifford
that's
left, right. He can turn on his right, turn his left. I think the biggest challenge I've seen with Clifford, and watching him up close, is his release to foot when he kicks the ball. It's frightful how quick he can kick a ball off. Like you think you're tight to him, maybe 2 yards off him, and he's the ball whipped over your head in seconds. It's crazy stuff. Like you think you're on his toes, and I'm doing a good job defending here, but that ball is gone, and you're like, what do you do here? Like you really do think. And then what's even more dangerous is that he's got that turn of pace. For a big guy, he can shift through the gears over 10 yards, and you're thinking to yourself, oh Jesus Christ, is this book going to slow down? Like,
I think other forwards benefit as a result. The other forwards then make hay because there's so much attention going to one man, the likes of Paul Gurney then will come into it, the likes of whoever is hanging around the other side will make hay because there's an opportunity.
Well, Sean O'Shea I think he's equally as important as Clifford. Not only for his scoring, but like he's the kind of, like I mentioned Paddy Clifford as well. He's a massive link guy, and when you have a guy who has the ball to Sean O'Shea to kick a ball like he did the last day, like that's going to be massive for an All-Ireland final. Like Joe, so like that pressure Sean took on the last day, like everyone says it was a kick to nothing. But I think if Kerry went to extra time last day, I think they were gassed, to be honest. I think Dublin had their pick in extra time. So I think that kick was massive for Kerry the last day, to be honest with you. Because I honestly looked at Kerry at full time and I said, these guys are gone. They're right on their feet. So like people say, oh, Sean's kick was, if he missed, it wasn't a big deal. I think it was a huge deal the last day because I think that was the win of that game, essentially, because as I said, I looked around and I could see Jack's face. He's thinking there's no bodies left here to keep. Like Jack Barry had nothing left for 10 minutes ago. He'd made all the subs as well. So I mean, that's probably a concern for Kerry to a degree. Is I know they went so hard for the first 40-45 minutes. The legs went a bit heavy now for the last 20 minutes. Like you mentioned, Dave Moore, and he looked a bit gassed now towards the end as well. So it'll be a little bit of a concern for Jack going into the final. But listen, it's very hard to get a read. If Gaul is set up the way they probably will be able to preserve as much energy as possible going into the last quarter, because it won't be as in your face type thing. They'll drop back and they'll let you have the ball and run into them. So I think they will have a bit more, but like their forwards, like, I mean, what I love about Kerry is Paul Geaney had a bad day last day, and the next day he could shoot the lights out, hit 5 points. That's the thing.
I don't think he will.
I'm not saying he will, but I'm saying this is the thing. This is the beauty. If you wrap
I
up one guy,
think Paul there must be a huge question mark over him for the final. I think he's consistently underperformed. I think that that Kerry have got to select someone else in that position.
I do think so. Either Kenny was landed when he came on.
Nobody came in, Joe, and put up their hand, though, did they?
Well, I appreciate that too. I appreciate that too, and maybe they're stuck with it now. But Clifford, I mean, Lee marked all the best players. I mean, like, I remember with can I say considerable fondness, Tomás, the day he marked Sean Kavanagh. And not only, Lee, and can I commend you for this? Not only did you scoreless, but you got him sent off as well. Thank you, Lee, for services to Gaelic football. I know Sean and Tomás very friendly. Tomás, great time for him. Diarmuid Connolly, I mean, at that stage, really, Diarmuid Connolly was, many people felt, unmarkable. I mean, he scored 2-6 in an All-Ireland club final. He was probably at that stage, and certainly one of the great forwards of the last 25 years. And again, he simply couldn't deal with you. And I appreciate when you're playing him at wing half back, it's a different thing than playing a cornerback. Yeah. In relation to Clifford, I mean, left foot, right foot. I mean, I say Clifford's like a Frankenstein monster of the bomber list, and Maggie Sheehy, Cooper, Maurice Fitzgerald, pace, height, strength, mental strength. I mean, Pádraig O'Hora, and I know that you guys left Pádraig for reasons that will be known only to James Horan, completely adrift on his own against him. Like, what Pádraig's like mentally. I mean, Pádraig gets dug into you. Yeah. I mean, he gets dug into you, and I mean, he'll be certainly, he'll be in your ear and mentally testing you out. And yet, Clifford just, I mean, swept all that aside. So, the best you can do is limit him. And I think that the most disappointing thing is, for me, with Kerry, they're not giving him the ball quickly enough, and they're not playing off him enough, because this guy can do what Kieran Donaghy could do, but yet his teammates aren't playing off him. I mean, as you say, Lee, like, there's a huge amount of, because as soon as he gets the ball, it's an automatic panic.
Can I ask you a question? Can I come away from the game for 1 second? Joe, 2 weeks to an All-Ireland final from the semi-final. Agree or disagree? Should we what's your take on that? Now, I don't mind.
Fling it on.
Yeah,
it's brilliant.
As a fan, but are the players, are they getting... I love the fact that it's 2 weeks and the talk is fresh, and by the time we're finished talking about the last game, we're actually in the week of the match again, which I love as a supporter. But do you buy into this idea that the G are missing a trick by not having it in September?
Listen, look at the World Cup rugby. The maximum rest that those teams get, between is a week. That's what you get.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant. It flies along, and it's all very well for you two. Like, Mayo have been in 7 or 8 finals in the last decade. Kerry are in finals regularly. Whenever you were playing, Tomás, you were in the final basically every single year. You just couldn't beat Tyrone. I can't resist that. I really can't resist. I'm sorry.
Bad man.
The point is this. For Derry, for example, the last time we won the Ulster title was 1998. I was playing. And so we're sitting watching these other teams, and it stretches out like monstrous. So it's a much better, much tighter system. You even saw the huge enthusiasm for the Tailteann Cup final last week, which was brilliant. That's been the most pleasing thing of this year, and the fact that we're going to have a terrific final now, albeit that I think we've already had the game of the year with the semi-final. Take all the mistakes, all the rest of it. What a game! What an occasion! I mean, I was laughing out loud, clapping my hands. It was delightful.
Lee, would you rather that? Would you rather games bang bang 2 weeks game?
Yes.
Or do you like 3 weeks?
I would take another week potentially. I'd be happy, but I nearly prefer. I think every player, I think you're absolutely mad to say you don't prefer a game on or week on, because when I first came in, we had 10 weeks between games before, and it's madness. Like you actually get sick of training, like, because there's only so much you can do, like. And plus, what the beauty of the game on week on is, like, you don't have time to think. You're just like, for Kerry this week in Gola, there'll be fuck all training. You're just literally getting your body right. You're going to review the game, your opposition, and then you're going to the weekend. You might have a game between yourselves, and the following week you're into the final. So, like, you don't have time to be dwelling and dwindling and think about the final. Like, listen, it's Galway's first final in 18 years. So, I mean, it's a big occasion for these guys. So it gives them very little time to be thinking it's all in final day. It's another game for these guys. So I actually, me personally, I prefer it. My only pitfall is we have barely any sport in August.
You take in the build-up, Joe.
The big thing about Gaelic football, and the thing that, I mean, I was doing this thing with Dennis Bastic for Temple Oak Sing Street, a few Fridays ago. He was saying, like, the thing that people forget is that it's just a game of football, and it's a football tournament. And that's what we always approached it like. We didn't make a big fuss out of it. Oh, it's an All-Ireland, we're in our fourth, we're in our fifth, we're going to win 5, and we're going to say. Nobody ever talked about that. It was a game of football, and we loved playing football, and we loved looking forward to the football game itself, and we concentrated on it, and we played that. And that's what this is. It's a football tournament, and it takes far too long. This should be a festival of football, just as it is at the moment. I think we need to move now. I mean, one of the great things about the Tailteann Cup was you were worried they're not playing the final on All-Ireland final day. Why are they not playing it the same day as Sam Maguire to give it the same respect? But as it turned out, it was brilliant. There was a brilliant crowd. I mean, there were a load of Westmeath ones around us. They were absolutely delighted. They were thrilled to have that recognition and respect. And what I came away from Croke Park at the weekend thinking was not so much about Kerry and Dublin and the All-Ireland final, but about the fact that the sooner we move to 4 tiers, the better. So you play Tier 1 and Tier 4 would play on Sam Maguire Day. Tier 2 and Tier 3 final would be on the Saturday, one after the other. So you'd have like 5 o'clock, then 7 o'clock on the Saturday. And you have a festival of football in with everybody getting involved, because the sooner we've got Leitrim and Antrim and Croke Park, with big crowds from Leitrim and Antrim there and all,
it's the National League.
The sooner the game will be emancipated. Because for far too long, the game has been about, like, for a full decade there, the game was about Dublin and Mayo. There was nothing else. Yeah. I mean, Kerry came once, lucky enough out All-Ireland, to be fair to us. Lucky enough
hey, they'll take it. They'll take
them all, Joe. Take them all.
For a decade, the only real conversation was, once Donegal were gone, and Jimmy's project was gone, and there was no prospect of an ambush thereafter, it was really Dublin and Mayo, and that's all we talked about for 8 years. And then people from Derry, people from other counties, we must get involved in that conversation, because we've got fuck all else to talk about. We're sitting twiddling our thumbs for 4 months. So this is a far better job. I think it's great. It's the way forward. And we'll gradually, I think, go to 3 tiers and then 4 tiers, and then we're in serious business.
The one thing I do disagree with the Tailteann Cup is I didn't like the divisional setup. I think it should be an open draw. I think I think you'll get better games, you'll get better interest. And I think the quality is better. Yeah. I don't like it. I don't like it knowing a team has come across that team in recent months or weeks. I think if you're an open draw, it's a better incentive for teams to be traveling the country, and it gives crowds a better opportunity to go to different places, different grounds, and just get a better experience. But outside that, I completely agree. I thought the final last day was absolute cracking in football. I think, like, if you're looking for a spectacle to promote that game had absolutely everything. I thought it was just a brilliant game of football to watch, to be honest.
This season, the show is brought to you by EIRGRID, official timing sponsors of the GAA All-Ireland Hurling and Football Championship, and key drivers in Ireland's pursuit of a cleaner energy future. Big games, lads. Can I ask you about big games in All-Irelands or Ulster finals, Connacht finals, whatever it is? Would you get nervous? Or if you didn't get nervous and you enjoyed the build-up, would other fellas get nervous inside in the dressing room? Would you get enjoyment out of that?
I did. To be honest, I'd be sure I was very mellow coming to games, because I think I just go back to Joe's point. Like, I see football as fun. I don't see it as something that you should be. It's not a job, like, So I mean, you're getting run out. Like, you train for so long during the year, and you're hiding away from everything. So you get to go out and you get to play a big game in front of a crowd. So that's the fun part. So, but geez, some of the boys and All-Ireland final day, Connacht final day, geez, some of the routines, I tell you, lads, it's just it's bizarre stuff. Like, we used to have one guy that used to lie under the bench like for about an hour, like just falling asleep, like But the same guy was so nervous, like it was just his routine, and we had other guys just doing banana stuff, like. But that was the beauty of different personalities and how they're trying to feed themselves into the game, and just relax themselves. But some guys, then we just couldn't relax. They're up the wall, like, they send themselves mad. They'd have the game played probably 3 days in advance.
So you
I,
had
I
to have a few nutters, Joe.
Lee, Lee was the ideal, the ideal personality for big time sport. I mean, uh, uh, he summed himself up perfectly there for me. A constant competitor because he had no distractions. He was focused on what he was doing, and also I think, I mean, one of my favorite memories of Lee, and there are very, very many, but one of my favorite memories of him, and it was a game you lost actually for Westport playing against Belmullet last year in the championship. And I thought Westport made a huge error instead of playing Lee out in the half back line or even in midfield to attack and do his thing because Belmullet were a very limited team. They put him back on Ryan O'Donoghue. Right now, Ryan O'Donoghue was extraordinary in the Mayo Championship last year. I mean, I'd seen him against Briefy in the quarter final.
Yeah.
I mean, he was extraordinary. He scored, I think, 2-4, and like he was really all Belmullet had. So they put Lee on him anyway in the semi final. I thought it was a big mistake because Ryan's an expert corner forward, and Lee's probably the greatest wing back of his era. And a wing back is not a cornerback; it's a completely specialized role, especially when you go up against somebody like that. But it was the most entertainment, right? Because the way Lee plays, like Lee got absolutely ripped into him. You see him O'Donoghue. O'Donoghue's very, very pugnacious. Like he's very strong, very,
Tough
very,
boy.
very aggressive. Like, oh no! I mean, he punched Aidan O'Shea in the quarterfinal. Like he took him like that and he punched him up into his neck. He kept punching him, and Aidan was like, "All right, all right, all right," and the crowd went mental. It was great fun. Anyway, but that day O'Donoghue got about 1-4. He scored a goal, like, and he just, and then after that, when all seemed lost, Lee burst forward, and kicked one of those 50-meter points that he does. Those really unlikely points. I don't know if you remember it, off the outside of his boot. And we were just saying, like, you cannot sicken Keegan. Like, it doesn't matter what you do. You can't sicken the fucker. And that's because he plays. That's because he plays with that sense of joy, enthusiasm, adventure. And he's always been like that. I mean, it's a great pity that he hasn't got a Celtic cross, but in the end, you look back at a career like his and you say, look, that's a career of glory. That's a career.
That's
of
sport,
honor.
like, as well. Like, people always judge you on probably your success, and that's fine. I accept that, but like, I still like look back and think, Joe, I maximize everything I possibly could. Like, probably like yourselves too, guys. Like, Joe, that I would look back and say I actually enjoyed my football, and like I get great satisfaction and I get great content knowing that I went and played for 12, 13, how many years I played for, and I played with a smile, and I played because I love playing football, not because I was made to do it or I was tied down by it. It's just because I know I love it, my family love it, but like it is something we're meant to be love doing. I see too many lads come in now and it's nearly like a job to them. They're like, oh, we have to give up another 3 hours tonight, or we have to come in this day. And I said, well, like, no one's putting a gun to your head. If you like doing it, you'll do it, and you'll enjoy doing it. Like, at the end of the day, you have options galore. So like, I always just think to myself, like, especially probably since I had kids, like, football is nearly just your outlet to a degree, because you get away from the pandemonium of your house, as you know, guys, and you get to spread your wings for a couple hours and train, and then you get home to the madness again. So that's just the way you look at football. Like, it's a great distraction, I think.
There's players that you'll actually sit down to. There's some matches that I won't sit down to watch, but if there's certain players playing, I'll sit down to watch. And Lee would fall in that. Or McCarthy would fall in that. There's certain players that you just love. Clifford would fall in that. Joe, there was characters in your dressing rooms. Would fellas get nervous before big games?
It was very. My memory of it's not great. I would misremember games and details and all of those sorts of things. I mean, I just remember that we were clearly on a roll for once, because the team was good enough. I mean, David Hickey's got a theory. David always said to me, like, fuck, you're talking on about the great Dublin team doctor, the great Dublin player from the 70s. He was like, you're rabbiting on about Jim Gavin. He's saying to me, like, that's the greatest group of players that's ever played the game. He says, Jim's job was to try not to fuck it up. No, quite seriously. And I mean, I always say, like, yeah, but, he was a facilitator, very calm, gave the group its head. I mean, I've seen Jim with the group. I've seen him socialising with the group after they'd won their fifth All-Ireland, I think, against Tyrone in 2018, I think it was.
Yeah.
I just happened to be socialising with Conor Moore, the guy the sketches guy. in the Palace Bar, and the Dublin team came in on the Tuesday night, and they locked the doors, and I just observed it all, and Jim just sat in the background like a Buddha, sipping a stout and smiling. Well done, Jim. It's the lads, it's not me, that sort of. And this guy who was pretty ruthless, but who was a facilitator, and essentially, just let them play all these diverse characters like Philly McMahon, such strong characters. Dear McCauley, Bastic, like Michael Dara McCauley. I don't know what anybody would make of Michael Dara McCauley, one of the most extraordinary human beings I have the pleasure to know. And so that thing about and with Eamon Coleman, with our dairy team, really the thing about Eamon was that he just completely adored us. I mean, he actually adored us. He just thought we were unbelievable. He kept saying that. And he always used to tell me, he says, I cannot believe, Joe, he says, I cannot believe how good you are. He used to say that to me. And I would think, fucking brilliant. Excellent. And you had boys like Henry Downey there who essentially organised the team. They'd won an All-Ireland club title with Lavi. Henry was a winner wherever he went. He was like Roy Keane playing at number 6. You put him doing 10 skill tests. Anybody else in the squad would beat him on those skill tests, but you put him at number 6. This guy burned, he burned, and there was no end to him. And so Eamon picked the team. The Lavi boys sort of structured the team, if you like, and everything else just fell into place. He just loved the lads, and we loved playing with him. And the squad was great fun, and it was always, as Lee says, we always cracked, like going down the bus, like they just played cards all the time. And it was always crack, and there was no strict rules or anything, but everybody fought together for the same cause. And so we had that glorious, but it was I can't really remember much about it. I mean, we came out at the other end, we were the All-Ireland champions. I remember standing in the shower saying to Fergal McCusker, is this it? McCusker said to me, thank goodness sakes. Yeah, which worked out okay for him.
I was thinking you have different characters. And I would actually be relaxed enough until maybe I hated the hour in the dressing room just before it. I hated that hour. But other than that, I would be relaxed enough. I remember we came down the bus, the sun was shining, getting ready to go into Croke Park. We used to stay out in Dunboyne. And Tom O'Sullivan, who would be seen as a kind of a really cool character, never panic, always, this kind of game, I just play this now, I can do whatever. Nothing ever frazzled him. So myself and Dara were looking at his gear bag. It was on the ground. All the gear bags were together. So we took his boots out and we put them into our own bag. And we went into the stadium. We said nothing. So he threw his bag on, knew nothing different. So when we actually landed into the stadium, went out, watched a bit of the match, came back in. And we kept an eye on Tom. And Tom was over now. And he went into his bag for his boots. And he rummaged around. He obviously saw no boots. He came back up. Then he went down again, rummaged again, and came back up. And he started laughing to himself inside the dressing room, right? He obviously forgot his fucking boots. So if that was me or if that was I'd be panicking at that stage. Tom didn't give a shit. Now, Tom would have. I saw Tom inside in the dressing room having to get a pair of 6-stud off Jack Connor in the National League game. So Dara caught the boots out of his bag. Here, you fucker, here. And Tom says, I knew one of you had it. I knew one of you. And that banter was there. I presume, lads, when fellas finish and I'm finished and Joe's finished, the banter and the crack and what you're on about there, Joe, in terms of being tight, that's what the memories and that's the friendships you take away. And I know if people say, it isn't bollocks, it's all about winning. But it is friendships, isn't it?
No, it's a deeper bond of, like of you might not see each other for a year, but when you meet each other, you're very comfortable. And that atmosphere of trust and togetherness that's there and all of that. But your story about Pat Gilroy told me a story, and I asked Michael Dara McCauley about it. He said, like, Michael Dara was unbelievable. He wasn't really a Gaelic footballer, but he'd come to the trials and he said, what the fuck is this? This guy was just a beast, as he was. I mean, his tackling, his work rate was incredible. He never flagged, and he was full of enthusiasm. He didn't really know any Gaelic footballers or anything like that, but he was a brilliant competitor, as you know. But either for an All-Ireland semi-final or a final, he came up to Pat and he says, look, I forgot my boots. Pat says, what the fuck do you mean you forgot your boots? Pat had to give him his boots, which were, this is absolutely true story. Had to give him his boots, just don't fucking tell anybody, brought him into the fucking change room, brought him into the side room, gave him the boots, the boots. He said another thing that Michael Dara wouldn't Michael Dara said to him, "Look, I'm playing basketball, and I have basketball games on Saturday night, and I have a basketball game the night. This is their All-Ireland final in 2011. I have a basketball game on Saturday night." Pat says, "Well, you can't play that." And he says, "Well, you know, I don't really see, I don't really see why I can't, and I don't really see the point of, playing an All-Ireland final if I can't play, from a team in the basketball, like blah 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 blah." And Pat realised that it would depress him if he didn't let him play. So he said, "Look, okay, you can play." And it wasn't an important game; it was just presumably a scrimmage for whatever team he played for. So he played basketball on the Saturday night for the All-Ireland final.
Probably the best thing you could do, like.
Well, correct. But Lee, I wouldn't be surprised if Lee was exactly the same.
I tell you, Keith Higgins was the one guy I just could never figure out, like, because I remember we played the 14 replay in Limerick, and we were there for dinner about 1 o'clock. And we had an hour left before we're leaving, like, and you're looking around and you're thinking, "Geez, boys, they look well, they look in a good place." And next to someone goes, "Where's Zippy?" And they went looking for him, couldn't find Zippy. Sure, the fucker was up sleeping away till about 2 o'clock. 10 minutes we're getting on the bus there, Zippy. Like, I said, "How are you feeling?" "Ah, yeah, could do with a nap now again,
Because he always, whenever you meet him, he always seems sleepy.
He loves sleep. Don't interrupt that man's sleep.
We had a few pints once in the Tull Skin when it was still open, the famous Tull Skin, which Christy Moore had a line in a song about it, that being in, and when he sang in Tulsk, it was just like being in hell. And the reason that he said that was because the locals got very upset because they came late during the concert just to get into the Tull Skin for a pint, and Christy's doorman wouldn't let them in. So they took the doorman out and they fired them into the Tulsk River. This is not a joke. And Sean Moylan, who was running the Tull Skin at the time, said that Christy had the eyes closed, fucking give it up. "Well, come on, you see." And when he opened his eyes, he realised this fucking mayhem was going on, and they were now coming up to take the boys from his band and fire them in the river too. But myself and Keith had a few pints in the Tull Skin one evening. And he's very, very, very relaxed.
Oh, he's
very quiet,
quiet guy, but like he's a competitor as well behind it all. Like Joe, you mightn't think it, like Joe. That guy is like he's very chill out, very relaxed. But like he goes out, like he's brilliant.
You've played against both these teams in recent times. What are the non-negotiables? And we'll finish off this now. There's only a few minutes left in it. What do you have to go after to beat Galway?
To be honest, like I think if Kerry go front foot straight away, I know Kerry play a bit defensive, but I think as well, I do agree with Joe. I think you nearly want to get the ball to David Clifford at any opportunity in that first half, especially the first 10, 15 minutes. Like, again, this is Galway's first All-Ireland in a long time, so they're going to be a bit nervous, apprehensive. So I think get the ball to Clifford, Sean O'Shea, Paddy Clare, let them just go at them straight away and see what they have. And I think we'll get an idea straight away in terms of how Galway are going to set up and how they're going to feel for the game. And if they're going to be a bit tentative, I think Kerry could fucking milk it for the first 10, 15 minutes. And that's been totally honest with you. I think if Kerry go back into a bit of default and play a bit safe, that's going to give Galway action, get them into the game, give them an opportunity. So I think if Kerry are really ambitious, and I think they're going to be, I think just go after Galway for the first 10 or 15 minutes, just see what they have. Put any type of ball into Clifford and see what they're going to do. And then we'll see what Galway are made of then, because I think you get Clifford on the score line early, you get Sean O'Shea, get these boys on the score line early. Galway are chasing their tail pretty fast.
Joe, they sat back against Armagh, they sat back against Derry. Do you see Galway sitting back and keeping the score down in the first half?
Well, see, I think that Kerry will start with David Moran because he's an exceptional long passer. I mean, the first ball he got in front of us on Sunday night was an absolutely magnificent 60-yard pass, reminiscent of the pass that undid you boys, Lee, in the famous drawn semi-final where you had them beaten, and he gave it into Donaghy, catch down to
home side.
Yeah, so I think that they'll start with David Moran, and they will move the ball quickly. And they've now got a good balance. Systematically, they do defend with a sweeper at all times, and they keep that central area firm. So the first thing is you make sure that Comhrá will get frustrated. He's not a patient full forward, and he will get frustrated. I mean, I thought it was very, very easy for him against Derry when it came to it. He's very good at that, but sure, I mean, anybody's going to be good at that if you give him 1-on-1, 20 metres out, and 1-on-1, 20 metres out with no goalie in. But so they'll do that. I think the other thing is this: probably Tom O'Sullivan on Shane Walsh, and thereafter thereafter, Conroy's a big threat coming through the middle, but there's only so much damage a midfielder can do. Like you compare and contrast the forward lines. I'm not as enthusiastic about the Kerry forward line as you are, Tomas. As a whole, I think that you've got. I believe he's going to prove it. Like some people have a destiny around them. You're as good as he is. Like this is the bomber listing coming in '78. This is a whole new thing, and I do believe there's a sense of destiny around him, and it's something that he carries pretty easily, and that he will be very dominant. And Kerry are coming into this as favourites. They froze against Tyrone last year, very much so. And that's a massive challenge for them because against Dublin, no matter what anybody thinks or what the bookies were saying, Kerry were coming into that as underdogs and thinking this is the great Dublin team. This is our greatest challenge. It's very different playing as underdogs. So subject to that, subject to Kerry being able to carry the favourites tag, which they couldn't against Tyrone last year. And eventually they wilted. And once Clifford went off, it was all over.
Do you think Galway are capable of
I think Kerry to win it.
Do you think Galway are capable of fighting Clifford?
What?
Do you think Galway are capable in any way of keeping David Clifford?
I don't think anyone's capable of keeping. I mean, the only time I've ever seen Clifford being marked was that Cork guy who just. Some people have that.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy was like enough. His big long arms and he was ungainly, but maybe Clifford just couldn't get going that day and eventually succumbed to frustration. He was still a young footballer at the time.
I think, Tom, you keep him to 4 points. I think you have a chance. Straight up.
What?
I think you keep Clifford
to
4
points. You have a chance.
Yeah. So 4 points from play, you've definitely got a chance.
That's just reality for Galway.
Kerry's anxiety will increase as the game goes on if they don't get on top because everybody's saying now, look, Kerry are going to win this. I mean, I was in the Barbers this morning and everybody was just saying, like, fuck, there's no point in putting money on Galway. Like, I mean, Kerry are going to put this away.
I don't know.
No, but I disagree with that. But my point is this: that Kerry could not wear the favourites tag last year. They just could not wear it against Tyrone, and they were not able to perform, save for Clifford. I don't think that Sean O'Shea is as good as you say he is, Lee. His free was magnificent.
I think mentally he is good, Joe. I don't know. I do like him as a player. I do think he adds something.
Well, no, don't get me wrong. I mean, he's a brilliant point scorer. I don't think he's a playmaker. Not at number 11. He's not a playmaker for Clifford, and that's my criticism. That if I was playing him, I mean, if Kerry would really be in business if you had a Greg Blaney at number 11 or a Brian McGuigan. It's just like, so, boom, there he is, boom, boom, boom.
But Shawnee brings to the table then, Joe, what other fellas can't bring. Jeez, he sets the tempo in terms of even attacking. He's
a brilliant free team.
In so many ways. Can I ask another question? Is it too easy to say from a Kerry point of view, Neil Comer, Neil Welch, Neil Conroy, they can't win?
Well, that's you're looking at big leaders gone. Big leaders gone there. Like if you nail those three, I don't know, Galway struggle. Now, I do think they got away with it against Armagh. I think Finnerty, McDade, and I think Johnny Heaney stepped up.
And their keeper's dodgy as well, Lee. Their keeper's seriously dodgy under the high ball.
Yeah, I think Kerry will really attack. 100%. They're going to attack Leeson.
Kerry never kicked a single ball in. Not a single ball. Armagh kicked in 3 goals.
Galway set up, which I didn't expect. Now I didn't think the goal was man to man with Derry in a kick out, and it was the absolute toast to your man alive in the second half. Or Lynch, like the put him.
But our keeper's not a keeper.
I understand that, but like they recognise it. So I honestly, like if I've been told honest, I think Galway have I don't think it's as clear cut as people are saying with Kerry. To be honest, I think.
No, I agree.
Pork choice. Yeah, like I think Galway have.
I'm not. I think there's more pressure. I think people were talking about Galway in the semi-final, saying, we're in bonus territory even at the semi-final. So the same pressure isn't on Galway as it is on Kerry.
Absolutely correct.
They do have to perform. There is a sense then, if something ever happened to Clifford, how would we handle it, or how would we be able to?
Like, I suppose, in a way, we've been looking at the prism of Gaelic football through Mayo and Dublin for 10 years. Standards of excellence probably won't be seen again. Certainly not for a long time. I know Mayo didn't get over the line, but in general, their play, and particularly during the Rochford era, played some of the greatest football that's ever been played. Certainly 2 of the greatest finals that have ever been played. But we look at the prism of teams now through Dublin and say, look at this. Like, this is how teams are supposed to play. but teams don't play like that. Last year, Tyrone won the All-Ireland because Dublin were out. Now Dublin are out again. And to a very large extent, there's a democracy now of teams that are nowhere near that level, but where anything is possible. And so Lee's correct. I think that Galway can win the game. But for me, I mean, let's say Clifford gets injured early on. I think he's such a massive thing for that Kerry team now. They're so reliant on him. And I think spiritually they're so reliant on him because he's such a dominant leader. They would be in serious trouble. You know,
Kelly at fullback for Galway, lads, is a serious player.
he's not going
you know what, I call him the baby
Yes.
assassin because he looks as fresh as Daisy, but geez, lads, he can play ball. He can play some good ball. Now,
He's a good player, but
is it enough for Clifford? I don't know. I still think they're gonna have to tag team Clifford, and that's gonna free up something. But I do agree with Joe's point. I do think if Clifford gets injured or he's an off day, I think Kerry are in a bit of bother straight away because I just think they rely so heavily on his influence in the game, and if you lose that at all, I think Kerry are under a bit of pressure.
Kerry have been up and down. I was so surprised. Clifford didn't play the last game of the league against Kerry or against Tyrone down in Killarney. And that was payback for Tyrone from last year. When Tyrone were going down there, Tyrone have been a mess this year. They didn't turn up at all against us. They're just totally demotivated. They're a complete mess. They were a complete mess against Armagh in the qualifiers then. And yet they went down to Killarney for the last league game and bucked the trend of how they've been playing. And they beat Kerry without Clifford, and so did Inter Kerry that day. It's a huge question mark over Kerry's courage and character in and around this game. I mean that sincerely.
Yeah, well, I do think getting over Dublin was vital. There's always going to be people saying Dublin with Con would have been a different proposition. They would, of course, but they had to win that game, and they did. I think going into the final, you mentioned it earlier, Joe, where Kerry were disciplined. They didn't give Dean Rock a lot of frees. They were in that middle third, in front of the goal, in front of the D. They were swamping. For that alone, I don't think the Galway forwards are going to get the space.
I agree.
It'll be a challenge. And the other side, Clifford, they're the two reasons I think Kerry are going to win. I'll throw it over to you. Who call it?
I think I do agree with Tom. I think if Kerry are down 10% and if they drop 10%, I still think they're good enough to win it. I think Galway have to nearly go up 20-30% from the Derry game. And that's a huge challenge for Galway, especially in 2 weeks' time. So I think it's going to be a lot closer than what people are thinking, but I do think Kerry maybe by 3 or 4. I don't think they're going to pull away like a lot of people are saying. So I do fully believe, I do think Kerry this is the time for Kerry to take the All-Ireland.
I go back to this democracy that prevails now that the Dubs have gone for the last 2 years, now that they've been beaten. And really, the All-Ireland final last year, Mayo had beaten Dublin. Now everybody said, well, look, this is Mayo's year. This is Mayo's year. And that favouritism, they couldn't wear that at all. Tyrone got fucked into them from day one, ferociously. And Mayo simply could not handle that tag of being favourites and the expectation to win. There's an enormous expectation in Kerry. I think that the antidote to that is David Clifford. He's the one that settles you down, that plays through that isn't concerned by it. And I do agree that the way they don't let anybody through the centre is that Dublin were not allowed through the centre, and crucially, they didn't foul. Dean Rock was there. He's only able. Dean Rock is now only a free taker, but he had no frees to take against Kerry. So subject. The other thing I wanted to say about it is there was a demonstrable difference between Kerry's pace and application against Mayo, which I thought was poor, and I thought Mayo had opportunities. I mean, if Kevin had stuck that ball in the net, Lee, just before half time, that could have just completely changed things. Whereas against Dublin, Kerry were 100 miles an hour from the throw-in. And I mean, that's where Kerry need to be with this. And sometimes the problem with being heavy favourites and huge expectation is that there's a bit of lead in your legs. And so, but subject to those, I do think Kerry, because in the end, you've got to say that any team that's got Clifford in it, that's remotely functioning elsewhere, I've got to be the favourites now that the great beast is finally.
But I think Jack Connor is a huge factor as well, though. He's been here, he's done that. He knows how these days work. So
not against Tyrone.
No time to worry about. But it's a big factor. Jack has been there. He knows the games, Joe. So
you're right, though. But I'll tell you, lads, Jesus, I'm not the most popular man inside in the house after cancelling a holiday to Italy, but I'm delighted I cancelled it because you say, Joe, we have an All-Ireland. 2014 since Kerry won an All-Ireland. And it is.
Oh, boo-hoo.
Oh,
Boo-hoo.
my arse. We're hungry for it. So I would not like to miss that. And Jesus, if it goes the other way, sure, how bad. Look, lads, I want to thank you both. I know you're after taking time out, and I really appreciate it. It was great chatting. I love chatting football with men who know football. And lads, you know football, okay? I thank EIRGRID. Again, they have 2 tickets. It'll be a full house. It's great. The atmosphere against the Dubs was absolutely huge. It'll be another brilliant atmosphere. There's 2 tickets from EIRGRID on their social channels, so get in for them. Joe Brolly and Lee Keegan, I presume you both be up at the match, and I know you'll enjoy it no matter what. And Lee, even if Galway win, you'll probably end up down in Galway celebrating. It'll be a day away from the kids.
we take them with abundance, don't worry. So,
lads, go míle maith das a bheith caintleibh agus láirmid a ríis. Thanks again to our sponsor EIRGRID, proud supporters of the GAA Football Under-20 All-Ireland Championship and key drivers in Ireland's pursuit of a cleaner energy future. #powering forward.
Powering forward is all about timing. As official GAA timing sponsor, we manage the 70 minutes of game time on match day. As Ireland's grid operator, we manage the energy on the grid every minute of every day. Whether it's managing the time you have before the next game, managing the clock during the championship, or managing the energy on the grid across the country, we know that every second matters. We know that time can be our enemy or our friend. But most importantly, we know what it takes to keep powering forward.